to make the introduction for Stanley Mayer this evening, for this evening's workshop. Stanley Mayer is a businessman and a freelance inventor and lives in Grove City, Ohio. His scientific and engineering background covers many fields of endeavors, including heart monitors for the medical profession, the validator system for the banking institution, the NEVEX and ACTAR system for the oceanography field, and the EBIT concept for Star Wars, to mention a few. And now, Mr. Mayer has developed a water fuel cell technology to help solve the energy crisis. Many energy patents have been granted to him over the years, and Stanley, to name a few of these patents, has founded and served as chairman of several high technology businesses and co-sponsored other business activities in the international marketplace. While continuing to set up the water fuel cell business and inventing, Mr. Mayer has begun working on a book entitled "With the Lord There is Purpose," describing his spacewalk with the Lord to fulfill end-time prophecy. He continues his speaking engagements throughout the world, and he is also the recipient of 4 awards of merit, including from Who's Who of American Inventors in 1990 and 1992, Who's Who of Entrepreneurs USA in 1991 and 1992, and Who's Who of American Inventors of the Year in 1993. He has authored several international publications and has been a requested speaker for a number of organizations, including the 1989 Safe International Congress for Free Energy in Einsiedeln, Switzerland, the 1990 International Extraordinary Science in Colorado Springs, Colorado, the 1991 International Global Clean Energy Congress in Geneva, Switzerland, and the 1991 International Global Science Congress in Dayton Beach, Florida. So, and now I'd like to introduce you to Stanley Mayer.
As I had mentioned a little earlier for those on the videotape, we do release several publications pertaining to the water fuel cell technology. One happens to be the Birth of New Technologies, you see right here, which covers a detailed step-by-step explanation on why and how we can use water as a fuel source. Not only explaining the hydrogen fraction technology, it goes into the electrical polarization process and takes it right into the atomic energy balance of water, and how that we can use ordinary natural water as a fuel source to power our cars, heat our homes, and even fly our aircraft, and to go even into deep stellar space. So if you're interested in it, the publications are available for around $20 a piece in the conference, and $25 on a mailing request to cover the printing cost. The second manual that we released is also, we call the Water Fuel Cell Dealership Sales Manual. This is an overview of the technology and also covers our business format on how we are actually bringing this technology in, not only into this country, but internationally. For the same problems that we're confronting in energy in this country is also being confronted in other countries. So we've set up an international way of decentralizing both the production and the installation of this type of technology in order to get into the international market area. We also release periodically news releases. If those of you are interested, kindly give us your name and address or send a mailing request to us, and we will more than happily to send you an update on the detailed step-by-step the development of the technology and what's occurring in the international market area. This will continue on. We will put you on our computer system and send these mailers to you if you are interested. Again, for those mailing requests, send us a letter, and we'd be more than happy to send it to you. For those who would request the Birth of New Technology or the WFC Dealership Sales Manual, all you would need to do is to send us a check on a U.S. bank and for the requested materials, and we would be more than happy to send it to you. We also release a videotape. It's an hour presentation covering a lot of this technology. It's called the Extraordinary Science Talk. We released that videotape for $25 too, if you're interested, and just simply send us a request. for that material.
A car that runs on water instead of gasoline. Can it be true? Well, inventor Stanley Meyer made an announcement today in Colorado Springs. He says he's come up with a device that will hook up to any engine and allow it to run on good old H2O. Mr. King's heard talk tonight on the possible impact of the water fuel cell.
Stanley Meyer says the answer to dependence on foreign oil lies all around us. Seawater, tap water, and rainwater. Any kind of H2O, he says, can power just about every type of engine. How? With the water fuel cell. It fits in the palm of his hand, but it could revolutionize the world.
You're talking about a pollution-free, totally new source of energy, the voltage disassociation of water.
The fuel cell converts water into a gas, hydrogen oxygen, which is released in the form of thermo-explosive energy.
So the water fuel injector simply replaces the spark plug. We hook it to a hydrogen computer system which regulates and meters the flow going into the injector. It processes the water in such a way to release its thermo-explosive energy. And
the tubular array exciters or voltage zones are immersed in natural water, forming the water fuel cell. Once energized, the gases are quickly generated on demand, releasing energy in the form of hydrogen gas that is 2.5 times more powerful than gasoline. Once the fuel cell meets the energy demand, switch off the voltage zone, terminating the gas. You are now with, into the scientific terminology, the ability of burning ordinary water under controlled means. The temperature produced exceeds 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. The quenching circuit prevents anti-spark back while hydrogen gas is rendered safer than natural gas. Increased voltage on demand increases flame size, increases BTU capacity. The heat energy shown is 2.5 times greater than that of gasoline and burns 3 times faster. Because of this, the gas energy can now be used to run your car on water.
Action 6 News, a 6 o'clock report with Tom Lyons and Gail Hogan substituting for Michelle Gilliam, Larry Cosgrove with the weather, and Steve Vinnick sports.
Let's get back on land to top our news here at 6 o'clock. An age-old dream becoming a reality. A local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.
It's a major breakthrough that will no doubt make motorists happy. And as Ralph Robinson explains, the Pentagon is also showing lots of interest in this project.
Water has always been considered a precious commodity, but Stan Meyer's invention may make it even more valuable. He has developed what's called a water fuel cell. It has taken the place of his old gas tank. The water fuel cell breaks down water molecules into oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen is used to run his dune buggy.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow.
If you don't have any snow available to you, they use salt water because there's no adverse effect to the fuel cell.
Marcus started working on this project 4 years ago. He's not a scientist. He isn't even a chemist. And in fact, he never graduated from college. Myers was determined, he says, to design something to protect this country from oil embargoes.
And we've calculated that if we take the dune buggy from Los Angeles to New York, we would roughly use 22 gallons of water.
The Pentagon flew a lieutenant colonel in last week to look at Myers' invention. There is talk of possibly using it in the Star Wars defense program and to run army tanks. Myers is currently perfecting a water fuel cell for cars. It will cost about $1,500. He says it won't need any maintenance and you won't have to replace it. It'll be at least 2 years before the fuel system goes into mass production. The day it happens will be one the fuel industry hates, but it'll put a smile on the faces of those who've had to say at one time or another, fill her up. I'm Ralph Robin.
Now let's go ahead and discuss a little bit how and why that we're doing it and how we can use water as a fuel source. You have to kind of apologize. There are those who have followed me over the years. If you have not processed patents or in the process of processing patents, you must become aware of there are many loopholes in the patent processing, both nationally and internationally under the PCT Treaty Act. When you start to develop this type of technology, you are subject to be in compliance with the PCT Treaty Act, as well as under the national security laws. If you can run a car down the road on water, you can also run a tank down the road on water. We're reaching a point that is perhaps following a very critical state that we're going to be facing in the areas of another energy crisis of which we will not be able to respond unless this type of technology will be able to go forward. Go ahead, Leonard. You will. I want you to go home and I want you to look in the Bible. Technology to use water as a fuel source is prophesied in the scriptures. Look in the King James Version of the Bible, look up Job 38, verse 22 and 23. When the Arab threw the embargo in the United States, I was very actively engaged retailing truck parts, making over $1 million a year, actually 20 million across the board. When the Arabs threw the embargo on the United States, it alarmed me that a little country over the Mideast could actually cripple the United States. As mentioned, my background is quite diversified in research development, product development, engineering, corporate entrepreneuring, starting corporations right on the ground floor, right on up into the multi-international areas. So the Lord has really prepared me well over 20 years to be doing what I'm doing. Now in the scriptures where the Lord was talking to Job and he asked him a question, he said, hey Job, have you ever considered the treasures of snow? Or have you considered the treasures of hell, which I have reserved against the time of trouble, against battle and war? Now, is there anyone in here that thinks that you will not encounter a great deal of difficulty in trying to bring this type of technology in? I've been bringing it in under the power and authority of the Word of God. I'm filled with the Holy Spirit. I exercise all the gifts of the Holy Spirit, and I've been bringing it under the power and authority of the Word of God. And many people ask me how in the world that we're able to do this. And of course, this is my witness and my testimony before the world. Because to those in the know of how to control and manipulate high technology, I've been affiliated in a high-tech area all of my life. I know how the multi-international works to control and maintain that technology and to manipulate it. When I started back during the Arab embargo, it became very apparent that in order to bring the technology in, I had to comply to certain design requirements. Number one, it had to be built in the garage. If the technology could be developed in the garage, then I could bypass all the exotic manufacturing technology that control you or manipulate you. In other words, if a scientist would invent a chemical to increase the efficiency of the solar cell, but if Exxon or Atlantic Richfield would have, or let's say Exxon would have control of a wafer, then in fact that technology could be blocked going into the marketplace. So by building and developing the technology in the garage environment, then I have the abilities to bypass that type of control that may be put upon you. It's not only in the process of running the car and demonstrating the fact that we use the water as a fuel source, it has to be demonstrated in a way that it's legally protected, not only for this country, but for that of other countries. When we started to follow the patents on the processing of the technology demonstrated under 35 U.S. Code 101, if some of you may know, it says demonstrate operability. We went opposite the electrolysis process. I will assure you the United States government was no longer going to issue the patents unless we can demonstrate to them fully the operation, the mode of operability of the technology. And whenever you file patents, never file patents on over unity, you will never get them. File your patents on the mode of operability for those of you who seek to develop high technology. Always go for mode of operability and never go for over unity. If you do, you'll never receive your patents, but you can obtain your patents on the mode of operability. So the Lord started dealing with me. I went to my office laboratory. I did an analysis of why we had an energy problem based on my scientific background, and I said a simple prayer. I said, God, I love my country. It's the greatest country in the world. For you see, I've been all over the world, and I know and I value America. And I said, I love my country. It's the greatest country in the world. If you help me put a power supply in the country, then I'll do anything you want me to do. For you see, I know the controls and all the various loopholes of manipulation to control high technology. And it was going to take the faith directed unto the Lord in order to accomplish it, or otherwise it would never be done. When I did an analysis as to the energy problem, I realized that something happened in this country, that even the experts never anticipated. What took place was that the oil pressure in our existing fields started dropping. So much, in fact, that we started importing around 5% of foreign oil in around 65. In an interim period of 10 years, we went up to 40% of dependency on foreign oil, and this is where the President of the United States said that we must come up with an alternate energy source if our economic base was to survive. We have not reversed that dependency. We're now well over 63% of dependency on foreign oil in order to maintain the industrial base of this country. Now, it's not a question if or when that oil is going to be cut off. There are many governmental agencies, this country and other countries that verify that the pressure is dropping in the airfields just exactly as they have been dropping in the U.S. fields, but they're dropping 3 times faster than occurred in the United States. You cannot continue to bring the oil out and expect it's going to be there forever. We know we have roughly about 8 years of supply of oil coming out of the Mideast in order to maintain the industrial base. Now, you and I are all in the same boat. If you look at our industrial base and the world industrial base, it's based on the supply and utilization of energy. Is that not so? If you can't get energy to farmers, can they till their lands, sow their crops, and harvest them? I was pulled in a closed-door meeting in Columbus, Ohio, when the Columbia gas system informed the industrial leaders of the state of Ohio that our gas was being cut off 100%. I saw some of the richest and most powerful men and industrial leaders in the state of Ohio popping pills, and I thought they were going to have heart attacks. Because what they told us was that without any gas or any energy, we cannot make a product, right? And if you can't make a product, can you make profit? And if you can't make profit, do you pay your bills? The bigger you are, the harder you fall. And we were importing well over 95% of natural gas into the state of Ohio. I also started making some calls, and I started to realize that if our trucks were not started in moving goods and services outside the Columbus, Ohio area, I started calling and asking questions. How long do we have before the food supply chain in the United States would be disrupted? And they said, Stan, you have less than 27 days. If you don't get the trucks operational within that interim period of time, the food supply chain in the United States will be disrupted. The food supply chain internationally is less than 27 days. So it became very imperative that without a new and a free and abundant energy source, if we had no ability to retrofit directly to the industrial base of this country, even in the international areas, then we were going to be confronted with a tremendous catastrophic event that, in fact, without any form of retrofit energy system, we would not be able to maintain our industrial base, and it will come down to survival, whether or not we have the ability to supply the food for you and I to eat. Now, if we have no energy, can you go to the store to buy the food? Do you starve? If you have no energy to process the food, are you in the same boat? So it becomes a survival. So I started during the Arab embargo with the prayer unto the Lord. It was illogical to me, and said, Lord, if you will put those patents on my wall. Now, I've suffered from that prayer because that was a prayer of disbelief. I should have said, Lord, you are the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and you will supply me those patents to develop the legal base to bring it in. And I said, Lord, if you will put those patents on my wall, I'll believe you're Lord, Lord, and King of Kings. Today I can stand before you. I own and control this technology, both nationally, internationally, and nobody owns me or controls me or manipulates me. And as a scientist, as an engineer, as a businessman, that's a miracle to me. And today I can tell you that we have the abilities to bring this type of technology in. And just the same as President Reagan took the executive order to try to ensure that this type of technology would not only be protected to the United States, but also for the world. When I was escorted into the patent office, or to the Pentagon, with several colonels on either side of me, when they realized what I was presenting, developing the technology, I asked the same two questions. Gentlemen, if you don't have an economy, you don't have a government. If you don't have a government, you'll not have a military. It's imperative to get this type of technology into the marketplace as well as the other ones. Gentlemen, what happens if a foreign power can come in your own land, use your own existing laws to block this type of technology from coming in? These exactly two questions I asked every leader, every industrial leader of every country of the world that I've been going to, negotiating and talking and relating this type of technology to them in order to try to head off a possible international crisis in energy, which will be insurmountable. Not only that, we talked about the environmental pollution problem. They do not tell you that the internal combustion engine is a processor that processes our air that we breathe. The liberated oxygen that goes into that engine is now covalently linking up with the pollutants going out. That means that we do not no longer have a liberated oxygen to breathe. Those covalent bonding of pollutants coming out of that engine is now covalently linking up with the ionosphere. And as it's covalently linking up, if you want to prove it out, look at the sunset at night, and you will see that our air is starting to turn a brownish color. And that brownish color is showing where those fossil fuel pollutants are interlocking with our ionosphere, interacting with the sun, and as a result of this, we are now converting the atmosphere into a heavy substance that will not support life. Our core samples on the polar regions have shown that well over that the oxygen content in the air was around 30%. Today, it's less than 21%. Population, 5.4 billion today. In 10 to 14 years, will go up to around 9 billion at the rate that we are now processing the ambient air. The oxygen content will drop down to less than 17%. At that particular time, we'll be on respirators. The technology being developed was not only to eliminate the pollution, the fossil fuel pollution, and run it off of water, but also be able to process the air in such a way that we can revitalize the energy levels of the atmosphere to take it back to the original position prior to the Industrial Revolution. Now, we've been doing and developing this technology in a way as a retrofit energy system. In other words, what good is it to put it into home heating if you have no fuel source to be able to run the trucks and operate the automobiles? What good is it if you don't have an energy source that you cannot put into industry and maintain the industrial base? What good is it, for example, if you cannot be able to maintain aviation? You know, during the Arab embargo, we also was confronted with another problem. The problem being is that at that particular time, the United States government had only 2.5 days of aviation fuel for global defense. Today, it's down to a day and a quarter. When it reaches a day supply, the Joint Chiefs of Staff will have to make the decision, no more global defense. Did any of you ever hear anything about the war brokers? If you want to study about history of World War I, World War II, you'll start to realize that there were men spatially trained and women trained in order to bring countries into war, to break their economic back, to take over the controls of their countries. You ever hear of the Council of Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commissions? You ever hear about the Council of the Group of 300? You hear about the internationalists that are controlling to bring in a one world government. Now, we're heading for a one world government, but unfortunately, if the one world government is headed under a control, it's